Let me ask you something directly. If your blood sugar is too high, what has your doctor told you to do about it? Cut carbohydrates. Lose weight. Take this medication. Come back in 3 months. That is the standard answer. And for millions of people, it is not working. Blood sugar keeps climbing. The medication list keeps growing. And nobody in that 10-minute appointment has time to explain the actual biology of what is happening inside your body. Here is what most people are never told. You do not have to eliminate entire food groups to fix your blood sugar. In fact, the most powerful thing you can do right now is not about what you remove from your plate. It is about what you add to it. Today, I am going to show you 10 specific doctor-approved foods that lower blood sugar naturally, not by starving your body, but by working with its own biology to fix the problem at its root. My name is Dr. Frank. I have spent years working with patients on exactly this issue, and I have watched people bring their numbers down significantly, in some cases coming off medications entirely under medical supervision. Tabani. Before we start, do me one favor. Leave a comment below telling me what your morning fasting blood sugar number was this week. I read every comment, and those numbers genuinely shape what I cover next. Let us begin. Before I give you the foods, I need to give you the mechanism. Because when you understand why blood sugar rises, every food on this list makes complete sense. High blood sugar almost always starts with a hormone called insulin. Insulin is the key that unlocks your cells so that glucose, the sugar circulating in your blood, can move out of the bloodstream and into the cell where your body uses it for energy. That is insulin's entire job. But here is what happens after years of eating processed foods, refined carbohydrates, and high sugar meals. Your cells stop responding to insulin's signal. The key stops fitting the lock. Insulin knocks, and the cell does not open. We call this insulin resistance. Your pancreas compensates by producing more and more insulin. But even with all that extra insulin, glucose cannot get into the cells efficiently. So it stays in the bloodstream. Blood sugar climbs. And the standard medical response is a prescription that forces even more insulin into a system that is already struggling. The root problem is never addressed. Every single food I am about to show you does one of 3 things. It slows the rate at which sugar enters your blood. It reduces the chronic inflammation that is blocking insulin from doing its job. Or it directly improves the sensitivity of your insulin receptors so your own body can handle glucose the way it was designed to. You do not need to start all 10 of these tomorrow. Add them gradually over the next 2 weeks, stack them together, and watch what happens to your numbers. The first food is fenugreek seeds, small amber-colored seeds you can find in the spice aisle of most grocery stores for a very reasonable price. If you skip past this one because it sounds unfamiliar, you are walking past one of the most clinically supported blood sugar tools available without a prescription. Here is what fenugreek does inside your body. These seeds contain a powerful soluble fiber called galactomannan. When it reaches the water in your stomach, it swells into a thick gel. That gel physically slows the rate at which your stomach empties carbohydrates into your small intestine. Slower emptying means glucose enters your bloodstream gradually, rather than flooding it all at once. No flood means no sharp spike. No sharp spike means your pancreas does not have to release a large urgent wave of insulin. On top of that, fenugreek contains an amino acid that helps your pancreas release insulin more efficiently and assists your muscle cells in absorbing glucose. How to use it? Soak 1 teaspoon of whole seeds in a glass of water overnight. In the morning, drink the water and eat the softened seeds before breakfast. If the slightly bitter taste is difficult, grind them into a fine powder and stir half a teaspoon into yogurt or eggs. Start with a small amount. The fiber is strong and your digestive system needs a few days to adjust. The second food you almost certainly already have in your kitchen, but the variety you have matters, and most people are buying the wrong one. Common grocery store cinnamon is cassia cinnamon. It contains a compound called coumarin that, in daily doses, can place stress on the liver over time. The one I recommend to my patients is Ceylon cinnamon, sometimes labeled as true cinnamon. It is milder, safer for daily use, and it is the variety with the strongest clinical evidence for blood sugar support. What makes Ceylon cinnamon work is a group of natural plant compounds called polyphenols. These compounds behave in a way that mimics insulin. They help your insulin receptors bind to glucose more effectively, and they slow your stomach from emptying too rapidly after a meal. Research from the USDA Human Nutrition Program found that less than half a teaspoon per day measurably lowered fasting blood glucose in adults with type 2 diabetes. That is a meaningful result from something most people already have access to. How to use it. 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon of Ceylon cinnamon daily, stirred into oatmeal, coffee, or a smoothie. Pair it with a carbohydrate-containing meal for maximum effect, because that is precisely when you want your insulin receptors working at their best. Pay close attention to this one because it is the most underused food in this entire video, and the distinction I am about to make is one most people miss entirely. I am not talking about a head of broccoli. I am talking about 3-day-old broccoli sprouts, the small, delicate sprouts you can grow on your own counter or find in most produce sections. The reason this distinction matters: broccoli sprouts contain a compound called sulforaphane in concentration somewhere between 50 and 100 times higher than you would find in mature broccoli. That is not a small difference. Sulforaphane does something that none of the other foods on this list accomplish quite as directly. It travels to your liver and suppresses what I call the overnight glucose factory. Your liver produces glucose while you sleep. In people with insulin resistance, it produces far too much, which is exactly why so many patients wake up with a high fasting number despite not eating for 8 hours. A clinical study published in 2017 gave disin sulfur to individuals with type 2 diabetes and produced a measurable reduction in fasting blood sugar, with the strongest results in patients whose numbers were most difficult to control. How to use it. A small handful, roughly 1/4 cup. Added to a salad or sandwich most days is sufficient. Do not cook them at high heat as this destroys the active compound. Eat them raw or very lightly warmed. Most people avoid avocado because of the calorie content. That fear is working against them. The fat inside an avocado is monounsaturated fat, the same family as olive oil, and it is one of the most blood sugar-friendly substances you can add to a meal. Here is why. The combination of healthy fat and fiber inside an avocado slows your entire meal down. When you add half an avocado to a plate that includes rice, bread, or any starchy food, you are not removing the carbohydrate. You are placing a brake on how quickly that carbohydrate converts into blood sugar. The glucose rises gently and steadily rather than spiking sharply. Monounsaturated fat has also been shown in clinical research to improve insulin sensitivity, meaning your cells respond to insulin more readily. Practical use. Half an avocado per day is a reasonable amount. Add it to your eggs in the morning, spread it on whole grain toast, or include it in a salad that already contains a starchy component. Wherever carbohydrates are present, avocado softens the blood sugar response. Chia seeds are small, but their impact on blood sugar is disproportionate to their size. If you have ever seen chia seeds placed in liquid and watched them expand into a gel, you have already seen exactly how they function in your digestive system. Chia is one of the richest sources of soluble fiber available. In your stomach, it forms the same thick gel we discussed with fenugreek, wrapping around the carbohydrates in your meal and dramatically slowing their absorption. The glucose from your meal enters your bloodstream slowly and steadily. No sharp spike. No subsequent crash that leaves you shaky and hungry an hour later. Chia also contains plant-based omega-3 fat, which reduces the low-grade chronic inflammation that sits underneath insulin resistance. Address the inflammation and your cells begin responding to insulin again. How to use it. 1 to 2 tablespoons per day. Stir into yogurt, add to a glass of water with lemon, or blend into a smoothie. Allow 10 minutes for it to gel before consuming and drink adequate water alongside it. Fatty fish, salmon and mackerel specifically, work on blood sugar through a completely different mechanism than everything else on this list. They do not slow your meal down. They address the deeper cause of why your cells stopped responding to insulin in the first place. Insulin resistance is driven largely by chronic inflammation. When your body is quietly inflamed year after year, that inflammation physically interferes with the insulin signal at the surface of your cells. Salmon and mackerel are among the richest dietary sources of 2 omega-3 fatty acids called EPA and DHA, which are among the most potent natural anti-inflammatory compounds we know of. By reducing inflammatory signals, the cell membrane becomes healthier and the insulin receptor begins functioning the way it is designed to. Aim for 2 servings per week, each roughly the size of your palm. Wild salmon, mackerel, sardines, and herring are all excellent choices, baked, grilled, or canned. Canned mackerel and sardines are among the most cost-effective options on this entire list. Of all the nuts, walnuts are the one I point patients toward first for blood sugar management. Walnuts are rich in polyunsaturated fat and plant-based omega-3. That fat improves the function of your endothelium, the thin inner lining of your blood vessels, which is one of the first structures that elevated blood sugar begins to damage. At the same time, the combination of fat, fiber, and protein in walnuts blunts the rise in blood sugar after a meal and has been shown to lower fasting insulin. The number that tells you how hard your pancreas is working to compensate. A small handful as a snack are roughly a quarter cup or 7 to 10 whole walnuts in place of crackers or a processed snack turns what would have been a blood sugar spike into a flat line. Keep them raw or dry roasted, not candied, not honey-coated. Whole eggs. Yolk included. A whole egg contains almost entirely protein and fat, with virtually no carbohydrate. On its own, it barely moves blood sugar at all, but the more significant benefit is what researchers call the second meal effect. When you begin your day with eggs, rather than toast or cereal, you stabilize your blood sugar not just at breakfast but through to your midday meal. You arrive at lunch with calmer numbers and a smaller subsequent spike. The protein and fat also maintain satiety, which means the mid-morning cravings that push people toward processed snacks disappear quietly. 2 to 3 whole eggs in the morning is a solid starting point, scrambled, boiled, or folded with spinach. Add the avocado from earlier and you have constructed a near-optimal blood sugar breakfast. Apple cider vinegar has the most rapidly visible effect on a blood glucose meter of anything on this list. If you have a meter at home, you can observe this working as early as tonight. The active compound is acetic acid. It does 2 things simultaneously. It slows gastric emptying, meaning the carbohydrates in your meal arrive in your bloodstream gradually rather than all at once. And it enhances your muscle cells' ability to pull glucose from your blood and use it as fuel. Research led by Dr. Carol Johnston at Arizona State University found that 1 tablespoon of vinegar taken before a carbohydrate-containing meal reduced the post-meal blood sugar spike by approximately 20 to 30% in people with insulin resistance. That is a clinically meaningful reduction from something that costs a few dollars per bottle. How to use it? 1 tablespoon diluted in a full glass of water, consumed 10 to 15 minutes before a meal that contains carbohydrates. Always dilute it. Never consume it undiluted as the acid damages tooth enamel and can irritate the throat. And if you are currently on any blood sugar medication, speak with your doctor before adding this, as the combination can lower glucose faster than expected. The 10th food proves the central point of this entire video. Lentils are a carbohydrate, and they will lower your blood sugar. Here is how that works. Lentils are composed of a slow-releasing carbohydrate called resistant starch, wrapped in soluble fiber and a meaningful amount of plant protein. That combination means the glucose inside a lentil is released into your bloodstream slowly and steadily over several hours rather than rapidly all at once. They also carry the second meal effect. A bowl of lentil soup at lunch produces steadier blood sugar through the afternoon and into the evening. Clinically, replacing white rice or white potato with lentils several times per week is one of the most reliable dietary strategies I know for reducing HbA1c, the 3-month average blood sugar that your doctor measures at checkups. Aim for half a cup to a full cup of cooked lentils several times per week in soups, stews, or cold salads dressed with olive oil and a splash of the apple cider vinegar we just covered. They are filling, inexpensive, and they stretch a meal further than almost any other food. I want to tell you about a patient I will call Margaret. Margaret was 64 years old, recently retired, and she came to me genuinely frightened. Her fasting, blood sugar, had been sitting around 175, and her doctor had just told her it was time to add a second medication to her regimen. She did not want to spend the rest of her life moving up the medication ladder. She had watched her own father develop serious complications from this same disease, and she was determined to find a different path. We did not eliminate carbohydrates. We did not put her on a restrictive diet she could not maintain. We added eggs and avocado in the morning in place of her usual cereal, a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar before her largest meal, lentils replacing white rice several times a week, a small handful of walnuts instead of her afternoon biscuit, fatty fish twice a week, Ceylon cinnamon in her morning coffee, and broccoli sprouts on her lunchtime sandwich. Within the first week, her fasting numbers began to move. Within 3 months, working alongside her own physician who was monitoring her closely, she had been able to come off that second medication entirely. Her HbA1c had moved from the diabetic range back toward the normal threshold. 2 years later, those numbers have held. She did not eat less, she ate differently, and her own body did the rest. Let me bring all 10 of these together, because understanding how they work as a system is what makes the difference between temporary improvement and lasting change. The fiber foods, fenugreek, chia, lentils, and avocado, slow the rate at which glucose enters your blood. Your pancreas never has to mount a large urgent insulin response because the sugar is arriving gradually. The anti-inflammatory foods, fatty fish, walnuts, and chia, address the underlying inflammation that is blocking insulin from reaching your cells effectively, reduce that inflammation, and the signal starts getting through again. Fusi foods, Ceylon cinnamon and apple cider vinegar, work directly at the receptor level, improving how efficiently your cells respond to insulin's signal. The protein and fat foods, eggs and avocado, stabilize your blood sugar across multiple meals through the second meal effect, preventing the morning spikes and midday crashes that drive the cycle. Do that consistently, meal after meal, day after day, and the cells that stopped responding to insulin gradually begin responding again. That is what reversing insulin resistance means at the biological level. And once it begins to happen, your body starts regulating its own blood sugar more effectively. Before I give you your action plan, I need to draw one clear line. If you are currently taking insulin or any blood sugar lowering medication, these foods can work quickly enough that your medication dose may become too high relative to your improving blood sugar. That can push your levels too low, a condition called hypoglycemia, which carries its own serious risks. Do not stop any prescription medication on your own. Add these foods and bring this list to your next appointment. Let your physician monitor your numbers. Let them make the decision about medication adjustments as your body responds. That is the safe, correct way to do this. These foods work with medicine, not against it. But your doctor needs to know you are making these changes. Here is what to do starting today. 5 simple steps. Step 1. Tomorrow morning, replace your cereal or toast with 2 to 3 whole eggs and half an avocado. That single swap changes your blood sugar for the entire day. Step 2. Tonight, soak 1 teaspoon of fenugreek seeds in a glass of water. Drink it first thing tomorrow morning before breakfast. Step 3. Buy Ceylon cinnamon, not cassia, and add 1/4 teaspoon to your coffee or oatmeal starting tomorrow. Step 4. Before your largest carbohydrate meal tomorrow, take 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar diluted in a full glass of water, 15 minutes before you eat. Step 5. This week, replace white rice or white potato with lentils at least twice, and include fatty fish on the menu 2 evenings. Stack these changes in over the next 2 weeks. You are not removing foods you enjoy. You are adding foods that protect you, and the biology will begin to respond. If this information has been useful to you today, please subscribe to this channel. Every week I release a new video designed to give you the kind of honest, practical, evidence-based health information that makes a genuine difference. Share this video with someone you know who is managing their blood sugar, not to alarm them, but because the information in this video could genuinely change the direction of their health. Leave me a comment below with your fasting number this week. I want to know where you are starting from, and I want to hear how these changes affect your readings over the coming weeks. I am Dr. Frank. Take care of yourself, and I will see you in the next one.